Kevin Trueblood is the Associate General Manager of Gulf Coast Media.
Hey,
and there's a lot more words. Gulf Coast Public Media.
Close enough.
WGCU Public. And I got you your own mic too, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Unless you want that one.
No, this is fine.
So Kevin lives in Florida, where apparently the wind moves quickly some days.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but we have hurricanes on occasion.
It's like a tornado, but wider. A chubby tornado that doesn't move as fast. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I wanted to get him to talk about some of the stuff you do when, and hurricanes are a great example because unlike a tornado, you get a little bit of warning.
Well, yeah, I mean, with hurricanes, that's kind of the worst part of it is the few days leading up to it because you have no idea. It's like you have this, idea of where it's going to go, but you don't know exactly what the impacts are, and then it can intensify at the last second or make a wrong turn, and suddenly now it could be worse or better based on sheer luck.
Right, and I mean, I know for us up north, we don't get as many because the North Atlantic's not as warm as Gulf of Mexico and the southern parts of the Atlantic. But we've had some where they're like, buckle up, brace yourselves, 100-mile-an-hour winds, and nothing.
Right.
So Hurricane Day was a bright, sunny day, but you still want to be prepared. So what do you do? I mean, obviously, I've got it on the screen there, too.
Sure,
This is a surprise to Kevin because he hasn't got a clue what I'm showing.
No, you actually showed me this the other day, so at least I'm semi-prepared for it.
Click, click, click,
but
click. There's your slide deck.
Yeah, right. The idea here is, when we start seeing these, now, mind you, hurricane season comes every year. We know it's going to happen, and we know at some point there may be a chance that we deal with hurricanes. And so when we actually see stuff, and I actually back up a second, for hurricane season, it's a constant state of preparedness. It is making sure generators are operational, making sure that we have fuel at all times, making sure our facilities are cleaned up, hardened, that we have the supplies on hand to handle it. Because, yeah, sometimes we get a few days notice, sometimes we get even shorter. So it really could depend. So when we start seeing, warnings and actual as the models start to come into agreement to where it may go, that's when it's like, okay, now that's when we actually have to start preparing.
Right. Now, I'm going to quantify that because the time to test your generator is not when you get the hurricane's coming announcement. Yep. It's like the time to test your generator is not when you're standing on the stage at NAB and your wife phones you and says, we just got 2 feet of snow, the power went out, I pressed the button on the generator and nothing happened. Anybody who's been here before has heard me tell that story before. Trust me, I still get reminded of that. Have you tested the generator yet this month? It's the first. Did you test the generator? You're not leaving me in the dark again.
Yeah, I was going to say for us, it's all of my sites, all of the generators are tied to the remote control systems. They're exercised on load once a week, and so we know immediately if something's not running, if it's not exercising correctly.
Right. Now, as you can tell, the slide deck is not really tied to the conversation, except it gives me some visual cues. And like I tell people, the slides are there so you don't have to look at me. But like a wildfire moves fast. And this is from the Carr Fire out in the West Coast. And I know there's some people here that lived through that. It's a whole different level of preparedness. I mean, there's some things you just can't prepare for. In that case, you have to be prepared to work around not having a transmitter site.
Well, exactly right. And that's where even for last minute things that may come up. I mean, we're seeing even just in the last week where there's ice that brings down towers. There are wildfires that can spread instantly and take out a facility in no time. The key there is to, again, even if you live in an area where maybe you don't have as frequent a disasters, I mean, there's no place that's absolutely safe from anything, but having a plan puts you that far ahead and making sure that you have the resources on hand to get back on the air quickly gets you ahead of the curve. So
right.
You're talking being off the air, shortening from a week to maybe a couple of days to get back on the air.
Yeah. And if there's any iHeart folks in the crowd, some of these photos were borrowed from a webinar I did with Charlie Wooten a couple of years ago at a Panama City Beach. Pensacola. Where's Charlie? Thank you. I knew somebody back there. No. And so, yeah, same deal, though. I mean, you're doing the prep. But the other thing you've got to do after it happens is not hurt yourself, safety.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's going out when it's safe to do so and not putting yourself in harm's way, for sure.
And I mean, that's one of those things, and an example, I mean, I buried my truck off the road going up to my transmitter site. And I mean, it was a nice clear day. It wasn't that bad. We've got it winched out. But there have been some pretty icy days where it's like, I've opted not to go to that transmitter site. You know, and sometimes you got to make the call.
Yeah, exactly right. And in our area, when we've had these hurricanes come through, that's when the roads get flooded. We can't actually get to some sites, and we've had swamp buggies out. We've had the large trucks that, you know, the one you've seen, the old monster trucks, like those actually come in handy when you're trying to get through the swamps to get back to sites.
And I mean, the other thing that you can do, and I mentioned it before, redundancy is key. I mean, you know, these days you can get a 2 kilowatt transmitter that'll fit in a suitcase. And I don't care whose brand it is. Well, yeah, of course I care whose brand it is. But there are options of different sizes, different budgets, different weights, different power levels. But a suitcase size 2 kilowatt transmitter with one of those broadband antennas that Paul was showing earlier, or a Versatune, or a Jampro penetrator, or. And I mean, a couple of feet of Superflex, and you got something you can get on the air in a pinch. Slap a CD player into it.
And there's also, for those that are public radio stations, they know this. If they don't, making it aware again that the PRSS, the Public Radio Satellite System, has kits available for exactly this, which is a transmitter in a box. They can even get you antennas, and they can have that shipped to you in no time. They've done that.
Right. And I know with us, and I've mentioned this before, ECB in Wisconsin has got about 4 2.5 kilowatt transmitters in Pelican case with Superflex and antennas and various adapters. In other case, 2 suitcases, and away you go. You got a transmitter site in a box. Other thing, the big thing, and I did a troubleshooting presentation for PREC this year, and one of the things I said that you really need to do is take that deep breath and slow down and assess. Because it's too easy to just start diving in with both hands and sometimes make problems worse.
Well, and that's where it comes into having a plan ahead of time, because, and this is something that you discuss with not just yourself, which you can have a conversation with yourself, but with station managers, with the programmers and station talent, so that they understand what the order of operations is going to be when you're doing a recovery, which stations can get back on first. Basically, you have to kind of triage the situation and then prioritize who can do what based on the severity of the situation, based on the available resources to get back on. And then that makes it clear for everybody else what the priorities are in getting back on and what it looks like in recovery. You may not have a fully functional automation system. You may not have a phone system. You just what it's going to look like as you start recovering, and this is all stuff you can plan out ahead of time, so everybody understands this is the order of operations. Right,
and of course the best time to have a plan is before you need it, not when you need it. And the priorities. I mean, and there, Charlie's getting all the PR today.
He's taken worse storms than I have.
I'm going to have to buy him dinner at Captain Jack's next time I'm back down south, But yeah, so safety first, absolutely. You got to get power, whether it's a generator, whether it's batteries, inverters, whether it's power came back on. And then you got to convert the audio to RF somehow. And, you know, that's basically all there is to it. But absolutely, it's going to happen in pieces. And I know you just had a pretty big situation not too long ago where a hurricane and then a fire. Was it the other way around?
That was a couple of years ago. But, you know, one of the great lessons, and I've said this before in coming out of that, is, you know, and putting on my SBE hat for a moment, is being able to network, whether it's through the SBE or just getting to, you know, inviting the other chief in the market out to lunch. Getting to know the other people in the area is going to be a big help, because you can be resourceful in your recovery efforts, particularly if you've got shared transmitter sites. So if you know, I've done this several times now where after a storm, we're going to a shared site. We've got one fuel truck going back that's filling up multiple stations, and we're not worried about the billing aspect at that point. It's just get the fuel topped off. We'll sort out the billing and the details later.
Yeah. And I mean, give an example of the whole working together aspect of it. A million years ago when I started in customer service, early 90s, let's go that. I get a call from a guy, not so much a disaster, but they'd caught a mother of all lightning strikes in Hawaii, of all places, where lightning is not usually a thing. And they'd blown all 8 modules out of an AM transmitter, an ND10. And ND10 didn't tend to be prone to that, but it happened. So he calls me, he's in a panic, and I mean, this is before email, before fax. Well, no, wasn't up before fax, but before email. And he's like, how can I get these? And I said, well, just hang on, get in the computer. And I said, okay, this station, this station, this station. Gave him a list of ND10 customers on the islands. He got on the phone with them. Each one of the 8 customers I get, well, each one, he reached out to 7. They each donated 1 power module to him, so they all 8 stations ran on 7 power modules while he got his repaired. So just work together. If you build those relationships ahead of time, you don't have to make the panic call to me. And you mentioned this. It's funny because we were talking yesterday, and he goes, and the one thing you really got to remember is look after yourself. And I clicked to the next slide, and it was this one.
Well, not just yourself, but the entirety of the staff. I mean, that's something that we have, particularly when we went through Ian, we had staff that lost their homes, that lost everything, and making sure with the staff as a whole that everybody has the time to be able to take care of personal business, because for a lot of folks, you can't work, you can't do your job unless you have that, unless you can take care of yourself first. Right. So making sure that you're able to, take the time to dedicate to handling personal matters, and yes, keeping yourself fed, keeping yourself hydrated. These things are all important, but the emotional aspect of it is also very important.
Right. And the challenge becomes, of course, you're busy fixing stuff. And yesterday, I'm doing the SBE, the RF 101, and I realized when I got back to my hotel after the board of directors meeting at about 10:30, I haven't eaten anything today at all. Just been busy and forgot. So, sometimes you got to pay attention, especially in a high stress situation where you need that fuel. All right, so redundancy and spare gear, have your backups, harden stuff as much as you can. Somebody asked, like in a fire-prone zone, what do you do? Well, if you're not on BLM or in a national park, you can usually cut the underbrush back. Maybe make a little bit of a fire break. Cinder block versus wood frame. But if a forest fire rolls over your site, or a hurricane, a Category 5 rolls through it, it's going down. So at that point, the backup. So, what do you do? How do you budget?
Well, this is the thing I always say is it's hard to justify to ownership to buy a bunch of stuff that in theory you never use. But the biggest thing is just making it to find the way that you can get the best utility out of it. Yes, an auxiliary site is one of those things that can cost a lot of money, but when you need it, you need it. It's like an insurance policy that you pay for, or a generator for that matter. Yeah. When you need it, you need it. So making the most out of the utility of it, if you have 4 stations in a group, one site that's got a broadband antenna and even a 300-watt exciter can be enough to get you back on the air, at least for one of your stations at a time, or 2 stations, or however many you can do. Right. That can at least give you something that takes the pressure off. Yep. That at least gets you back on the air, even if it's a low power, and gets you, because I can tell you, having gone through, particularly after hurricanes, for the better part of 4 days after this storm, widespread in our area, radio was it. Radio and television were the only things. Cell phone service didn't work. The power was out. The internet was out. Radio was it. So making sure that we are there for our community is critically important, and that's how. And now is the time to make sure that you have the plan to be there for them when they need you. Yep, exactly. All right, that's all we had on that one. If anybody has any questions or comments, we can entertain 1 or 2. We're going to try and get it back on time. I need a Nautel shirt to come up here and grab a portable mic and be a runner. Or somebody can just throw a brick out at a bunch I see outside there. Just toss this. Yeah, I don't think you can get to the back of the room. All right, holler it out at me and I'll repeat it. I can holler it really loud. For radio voice. Yeehaw. Hey, Frank.
SCE, in its wisdom with its lawyers, decides to take power outs randomly at different places. Mm-hmm. And so that we have to have our generators and everything, because we could go 1 block up and the power's on and everything. Yeah. So that's a good thing with the generators. Also, backup transmitters. I find a lot of used stuff, the stations that have upgrading and going there, there's some used stuff. Second, the big fire it was up near Mount Wilson, right, Frank?
Mount Harvard, KUSC. Their transmission lines are melted. That might have been a picture you had of that.
But the Nautel survived.
Yay.
The fires up at Mount Wilson and everything. So congratulations, Jeff, on that. And
We'll
you helped
make
us get back on the air and everything.
I'd make a fireproof Nautel story, but I've seen a few melted ones.
Well,
too.
and to your point too, the getting like used backup equipment, a lot of us love to find those, 30, 40-year-old transmitters or something that make a great aux, but the important thing is to test them.
Yep.
To make sure that you are running them on a regular basis to make sure that they actually come up when you need them.
Right. And I'm going to take one more, and then we're going to stop. Right back there, Harish. I got a light shining in my face, so I can't see.
It's Charlie Toner from up in Ontario.
Yeah, hey, Charlie.
This happened this week. Major ice storm in southern and central Ontario. About an inch or more of ice on lines, taking down the power lines, poles, taking out cellular antennas, took out our STL at our site up at Horseshoe Valley. Use the Nautel streaming ability to stream the station using a 4G hub to get the station on the air, to notify people where they could go to fire stations to get warm because there was no power for 3 million people.
Yep.
That's this past week.
And that's important. I mean, like right now, I've got a Max Connect unit sitting under the podium here providing Wi-Fi connection just in case. Kevin, I want to thank you very much.
Well, happy to be here.
Thank you.
All right.
Let me put that back. I'm taking it away.